A jerk tried to get a discount on a car, but in the end, he paid the tax on stupidity. Recently, at a kid's picnic, I was swapping stories with another father, a car salesman, about the most difficult clients. And then, this story came up. The ending is particularly satisfying, so I think you'll enjoy it. This happened about 5 years ago when I was selling cars. It was a Saturday, almost lunchtime. On Saturdays, the dealership usually orders lunch for the staff, but on that day, I didn't get a chance to eat. I sold a car to the first customer, and any salesman will tell you, if you manage to sell a car by 11 a.m. on a Saturday, you're almost guaranteed to make a good commission if you don't sell at least 2 more by the end of the day. 3 sales in a day usually earned an additional bonus, which was $150. I'd already earned a bit of extra cash at the morning meeting for excellent customer reviews, and my sale became the first of the day, which entitled me to a SPIV, a motivational bonus given at management's discretion. So by noon, I had already pocketed $500, with a chance to double that by the evening. It was looking like a good day, I thought, until I finished processing the paperwork for the trade-in and received my first bonus. That's when the receptionist, a girl, came up to me. "Hey, you're good with difficult, angry, and weird clients, right?" she said. I replied, "Yeah, I guess. What's up?" "Oh, it's that couple." I sighed deeply, put on a perfect, consultant smile, and walked over to them. They weren't elderly, but definitely in their 50s. They were speaking condescendingly and with a hint of disdain. As I led them to an available table, my desk was in the used car section. I offered them coffee, but they refused, turning their noses up. They only seemed interested when they noticed our big, expensive coffee machine. The wife looked at me questioningly, and I sat down, offering her the chance to serve herself, explaining that the coffee machine was easy to use. I'd be happy to help if needed. The husband handed me a folder with a printout from our website. "I want to buy this pickup truck at the price listed here," he said. I replied, "Great. Before we discuss discounts, let me make sure this truck is still available. It'll only take a minute." The husband sneered. "Well, it's probably not available, is it? Looks like we came all this way for nothing. This wouldn't have happened with Volvo." I automatically apologized and explained that we have 18 salespeople and over 650 cars on the lot at any given time. With 250 cars sold per month, inventory control is literally a full-time job. I checked the keys, confirmed that the truck was in stock, and politely excused myself to bring it around. As I walked out to get the truck, I regretted not paying more attention to their printout. It would have saved me some frustration. But I just checked the number on the lot, confirmed the availability, and drove the pickup over. "All right, let's take a look," I said. They followed me outside, and I began showing the truck. The husband was dissatisfied. "This isn't the right truck. I told you it was supposed to be white." The wife added, "I told you we'd have problems buying an American truck." I was confused. "What do you mean? This is the truck from the ad you gave me." The husband snapped. "No, this is not it. The ad I showed you had a White King Ranch with an extended bed. This is a silver XLT. I'm thinking, come on. Even a car salesman should know the difference between colors. First of all, the King Ranch doesn't cost $30,000, and you know that," he said. "Second of all, I don't appreciate your insults." It was clear there had been a mix-up, so I suggested, "Let's go back inside and out. You have to sell the car at the price listed. That's the law," he said. "My wife is a lawyer. She's going to take you down." I tried to calm him down. "Look, no need for aggression. I get paid only if you buy a car, so I'm interested in sorting this out. I think our specialist mixed up the photos. Let me check. Let's break it down." As I suspected, the entire text in the ad pointed to the XLT model, just like the link to the specs. Our web guy had mixed up the photos. I found the pickup with the correct photo, but it was $20,000 more expensive and had fewer discounts. I printed both specs and the fine print, with the disclaimer at the bottom of each ad. For more than 20 minutes, I tried to explain the situation, attempting to reach their sense of reason while listening to endless threats and insults. The atmosphere was heating up to the limit. I was ready to get rid of these clients, but when I walked over to get the documents, The last thing I heard from the colleagues at the desk was, "Don't even think about letting these jerks go. Sell them the pickup." I immediately approached the general manager. He took one look at the clients and decided it wasn't worth dealing with them. He personally brought over a preliminary purchase agreement, showing a real loss of $6,000, along with the invoice. We were still about $17,000 apart, and the clients stubbornly stuck to their position, continuing to threaten lawsuits, even though they knew the law wasn't on their side and they were practically stealing the car at that price. Our dealership was part of the third largest car sales company in the world, so we had lawyers on site. I spotted the exact pickup they wanted on the used car lot 1 year older, with about 34,000 kilometers on it, certified pre-owned, priced at $36,999. I shifted my focus to that one, and we moved to the used car section. After a test drive, the husband could barely hide his excitement. The general manager asked me to call him before discussing the price, and to my dismay, he dropped the price to $32,999, which was about $1 above the minimum price and $2,500 below the cheapest similar car within a 500 kilometers radius. Plus, it was a certified vehicle with an extended warranty, which added another $2,000. Still, they insisted on $30,000. Husband, I don't care about the market. Just tell me how much you paid for it, and we'll negotiate from there. Me, I'm afraid you don't need to know that. You don't ask for the wholesale price of other products. You could literally sell this truck to CarMax and make a small profit without even considering that. You're getting the car practically for free, and my time is valuable too. Wife, we don't care about you or your time. We need a good price, and we still haven't gotten one. Can you do better? Me, you already have a great price, and considering everything I've put up with here, you're out of your mind if you think I'll drop a cent. I have a small child at home. I know this next part sounds unbelievable, but I swear this is exactly how it went. Husband, I don't care if your child survives or dies. Drop 1,000 or I'll walk. I could barely hold back my anger. The conversation was over. Husband, you heard me. We're done. Get out of my office now. Me, no, you're not buying the pickup from me. Husband, yes I am. Me, no way you're not buying it from me. I was extremely patient, but they had crossed every line. I told them to get the hell out before I blew up. The wife, typical, I'm out of here. I stood up, half pushed, half escorted them out of my office and then out of the building. Right after that, the managers at the reception started giving me a hard time. But when I told them what the clients had said to me, we immediately united against them. I was literally shaking with anger, so they poured me some whiskey and sent me to sit in a private office until I calmed down. The situation had gotten so tense that I needed about 12 minutes to cool down. The husband called back to complain about my behavior, but instead of sympathy, he got an earful from my manager. Still, he wanted to buy that truck, and my manager still wanted to sell it to him. The manager put him on hold and asked me, I need to sell this car. What should we do? I can fill out the paperwork, but you'll have to hand the truck over. Me, no thanks. Tell him the old price is off the table. If he still wants this truck, he'll pay the new price. No negotiations. Give him the new price and tack on an extra $2,500. The manager chuckled, nodded, and did exactly that. I prepared the paperwork, listened to his fake apologies, forced him to silently fill out the credit application, and only then showed him the purchase agreement. Husband, the price is much higher than before. Me, correct, sign here. Why the tax on stupidity? Sign or go home. He stared at me, and I silently looked him straight in the eye for about 30 seconds. Finally, he took the pen and signed. Until the car was handed over, I remained cold but professional, and after the sale, I treated him like any other unpleasant client. He continued to behave the same way during every interaction with me, but unexpectedly, he became my top source of referrals. It turned out he told everyone he knew that I charged him the tax on stupidity, and since he was well known among his friends, his circle decided to buy cars from me. Over the next year, I sold 7 more cars to people from his network. By the way, if anyone's curious, I did end the day with a hat trick. although the third sale happened after the dealership closed. Yesterday, I ran into my toxic former boss, the one who fired me, and things aren't going well for him. 3 years ago, I was fired from a stained glass studio where I worked as an artist, doing glass painting and design. The reason? I spoke openly about the safety issues in the production process. The owner made me responsible for safety because I came from a studio where safety was a top priority. I studied the safety regulations and repeatedly pointed out dangerous violations, improper handling of lead, acids, and other harmful materials. For years, my concerns were ignored. Then, someone, and it wasn't me, reported the violations to the labor inspectorate during the pandemic when my colleagues refused to wear masks. My boss assumed it was me because I was the one always talking about safety. At first, he hired a replacement for me, removed my safety responsibilities, and then fired me, claiming there was no work though. Just before that, he hired a new employee and got rid of me. The logic didn't add up. It was a toxic workplace where my efforts and professionalism were never appreciated. At the time, I had already started working on my own projects as an artist. When I got fired, I had no idea how I was going to survive in Los Angeles, but I made it. In fact, getting fired turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to my career. Last night, I saw my former boss at an event. His studio is in such bad shape now that he's reduced everyone's work hours to just 2 days a week, and many employees are already looking for new jobs. He said to me, "I heard you had an exhibition." And I didn't just have an exhibition, I had a solo show at a major gallery. I have $30K in savings, and my schedule is so packed with orders that I'm booked solid until 2026. I replied, "Yeah, everything's great," with a big smile. The best revenge is success. I honestly didn't expect this post to spread so much. Thanks to everyone who's sharing their own success stories after leaving a toxic job. The main question in the comments is, who actually tells others how much savings they have? I'll answer, I didn't tell my former boss that. What I really said is in quotation marks. The rest I wrote for you so you can better understand my situation. It honestly shocks me how many people don't read the text carefully. Oh well, whatever. One more thing. My former boss didn't tell me directly how bad things were at the studio. I found out from former colleagues at the same event. The most surprising part is that he cut everyone's hours that very day, and everyone was furious. Just to clarify, everything I said out loud is in the quotes. I messed up. I purposely didn't bring my wallet to a restaurant to teach my friend a lesson. Last night, I, 28 years old, went out to dinner with a close friend, and I deliberately left my wallet at home. She has this habit of forgetting her wallet whenever we go somewhere, so I always end up paying. I thought that if she forgot it again, she'd finally feel some responsibility. I was tired of being taken advantage of. As expected, when the bill came, she started patting her pockets and rummaging through her bag, saying, "Oh my God, I forgot my wallet, where is it?" It's the same thing every time. I calmly replied, "I forgot mine too." It was really awkward. She looked at me with a disgusted expression, then started to panic. My friend was furious that I put her in such an uncomfortable position, but I was fed up with her constant behavior. She called me a horrible person and accused me of publicly humiliating her. I felt like it wasn't fair to always silently pay for her. Fortunately, she was able to pay her part through Apple Pay, but it was obvious how embarrassed she was. So, did I mess up by leaving my wallet at home to teach her a lesson? Or was this a necessary step to finally address the issue without directly confronting her? If you don't have anything polite or constructive to say, just keep moving. I have autism, and this whole situation with someone I considered a friend really confused me. I decided to ask for other people's opinions, but now I feel like an absolute fool. Please stop messaging me saying I'm stupid. Thanks to those who commented on the situation. My neighbor kept parking in my spot, so I decided to teach her a lesson. Maybe it wasn't the smallest revenge, but it felt incredibly satisfying at the time. In my apartment complex, every unit has its own parking space. A few weeks ago, a new neighbor started consistently parking in my spot after work. At first, I didn't mind, thinking she had just made a mistake. But when it kept happening, I left a polite note asking her to park in her own space. The next day, I came home, and yes, her car was still in my spot. She had crumpled my note and left it under her windshield wiper, almost proudly displaying her rudeness. That's when I decided to park in her spot every single day, without fail. After 2 days, she started leaving notes asking me to stop, but I kept swapping spots with her. One day, she came to my door to confront me. I put on an innocent face and said, "Oh, I thought we decided to switch spots since you've been parking in mine all the time." She started mumbling some weak excuses, and after that, she stopped parking in my spot. Now, every time I come home and see my spot free, it feels like a little victory. Comment: my neighbor kept parking in my open spot, so one day I parked right behind him, blocking his car, and went to bed. Luckily, other cars could still get by. The next morning, my neighbor was pounding on my door, demanding I move my car. I made him wait almost an hour while I took a shower and got ready for work before finally freeing his car. He was late for work and never took my spot again. The tasting fiasco. I recently went to an Indian restaurant for a tasting to choose a venue for an event I was organizing with 3 senior male colleagues. The restaurant owner immediately assumed that one of my male friends was the main person and the one with the money in our company. I tend to be reserved when meeting new people, so I didn't blame him for the mistake. During the tasting, he gave a decent presentation and tried to joke around. When the topic turned to catering, he turned to my friend and asked, "Can you cook?" Then he added that I obviously couldn't cook, judging by my slim figure. He clearly assumed I was someone's wife and didn't address me directly, as if I weren't on the same level as the men. I just gave him a cold, intense stare, hoping he'd feel uncomfortable. Answering such a silly comment was beyond me. Although I didn't frown, my expression made it clear that the joke had failed. He quickly backed off and said, "Sorry, I'm acting like an awkward uncle," but that wasn't enough to make me back off from considering the venue. Then we started discussing alcohol and drink restrictions. Since I was the youngest among us, he turned to my male colleagues again and said, "You'll need to limit the number of shots, you know, because, well, young people." He pointed at me as he said this. My friend responded that I didn't drink at all, but the owner continued, adding that my girlfriends would likely drink because, you know, girls like to party. This was a professional event, and I was there as a professional, but in that moment, I again felt like he was treating me like a naive young girl. Yet, I was the one who was supposed to make the deposit and give the final decision. I just quietly looked at him again. After the tasting, he was completely convinced the deal was in the bag, and didn't even wait for our approval before bringing out the invoice and payment terminal. I was still unsure whether to book the place. The owner was definitely a fool, but the price was good, and I was focused on getting the result. Then came the joke. Apparently the funniest one in the world. He handed me the terminal and said, "The deposit is £500, and laughed, as if the idea that I'd be the one paying was absurd. Then he added, "Oh, come on, look at her face. I'm joking." Once again, I silently stared at him, and the men at the table awkwardly looked away. His joke was met with uncomfortable silence. I then told him we appreciated the food, but that the venue wasn't suitable for us. It was the first time all evening that we'd spoken directly, and he was very surprised to hear the refusal coming from me. He turned to my male friend to confirm if he understood correctly. My friend responded, "Actually, this event is hers," and the owner's face went pale with shock. I had legitimate reasons for rejecting the venue. The minimum capacity wasn't acceptable, and the fact that the second floor was booked for a separate event was a deal breaker. But it was his inability to communicate respectfully that became the final straw. Because of his behavior, he lost the contract worth about $99,000, and I hope it hit him hard. It was incredibly satisfying to see his bewildered face when he realized that I was the one making the final decision. I did something bad by poisoning my neighbor. I poisoned my neighbor who kept stealing my food around the apartment. He had been taking my food constantly, and I'm 25 years old, living with a 27-year-old neighbor. I used to live alone, but due to financial difficulties, I agreed to let this guy move in with me at the recommendation of a friend. At first, everything was fine. He paid half the rent and utilities and had no bad habits. But recently, we started having serious problems. I work late, so I usually prepare food in advance to eat when I get home. For a few months, everything was fine, but then I started noticing that my food kept disappearing. I asked my neighbor about it each time, but he always denied it. I even started labeling the containers with my food, but he still kept stealing it, which really pissed me off. Another detail. I don't really like nuts, but my neighbor has a severe nut allergy. He told me about it when he moved in, and out of respect for his allergy, I completely stopped keeping nuts in the apartment. But after a week of my food still disappearing, and him constantly denying it, I just snapped. The thing is, no one else comes to the apartment. He even joined my group of friends and barely interacts with anyone else, so I knew it had to be him. I also caught him eating my food multiple times, so there was no doubt that was just a blatant thief. One day, I made some ribs for myself and, as usual, labeled the container before I left for work. I sent him a photo of the container with a request not to touch my food. But when I came back home, the container was empty. At that moment, I was so angry that I decided to teach him a lesson. I bought almond flour and mixed it into some macaroni with cheese. I gave him a chance to survive by clearly telling him and even sending a photo of the container, warning him, "These are my macaroni with cheese. Don't touch them." Just to be sure, I secretly set up a camera in the kitchen to record what would happen. When I came back in the evening, I saw that he had eaten everything. This shameless pig left the empty container on the table. I grabbed the camera and decided to go to a bar. If he hadn't touched my food, I would have just stayed home watching Netflix. But since he ate it, let him suffer from the allergy. A couple of hours later, I got a call from his mom on his phone, screaming at me, calling me a monster for poisoning her son with nuts. Apparently, he had ended up in the hospital with a severe allergic reaction. I explained that the food wasn't meant for him and sent her proof, including the messages where I had warned him not to touch it. However, his mom started blaming me for being irresponsible, asking why I even bought something he couldn't eat. I told her that I clearly warned him not to touch my macaroni and even labeled the container. I lost it and yelled into the phone, explaining that if her son didn't respect other people's property and kept stealing my food, I didn't know what else to do. I told her that I had told him repeatedly, but he kept denying it and stealing my food. She started saying some nonsense, asking if I cared about him. I told her no, because I had warned him 1,000,000 times, and he always denied taking my food, even when I wrote to him and labeled the containers. I even told her I had video footage of him stealing. She didn't want to listen and started crying, but I didn't feel guilty at all. It was the only way to make him stop. I tried talking to him, sending messages, and using all other methods, but he just couldn't cook and kept stealing my food. How is that my fault? I didn't put nuts in his food. It was mine. Now everyone is calling me a psychopath, but I don't understand why it's my fault. I clearly warned him not to touch my food. It's obvious his family raised him to think it's okay to take other people's stuff, and in the end, I'm the one being blamed. At the same time, I know he's having money problems and won't be able to pay the hospital bills, so I do feel a bit guilty. So, was I really wrong? Or was I right to teach him a lesson about respecting other people's food? Well, thanks for watching this video till the end. Check out our previous videos right here, and good luck to you.